I'm pleased to be with Deb Henton, Executive Director of the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, Lori Zimmerman, MASA's Director of Professional Learning, and Kate Maguire, Facilitator of MASA's Aspiring Superintendents Academy. And the Academy is our topic this afternoon. Now, why don't we begin by you're giving us some background on the Academy, when MASA launched it, what issues it's intended to address, and its specific goals, that kind of thing. Sort of an overview.
Thank you, Doug. We were so pleased to launch our Aspiring Superintendents Academy a number of years ago. In fact, I think this is our 4th academy. Dr. Zimmerman can correct me, but she's nodding her head that that was the correct number. And we run our academy every other year. The academy was started in cooperation with our parent organization, AASA, and sponsored by Sourcewell. That is a cooperative in the state of Minnesota. And initially, the Aspiring Superintendents Academy had, I believe, 5 coaches for about 5 participants in each group. So there was about 25 people roughly in the first academy. Now we have close to 35 people in our academy. The reason we started it was to grow our Minnesota leaders and train them in ways that would help them be successful in their role as a superintendent in Minnesota. We know that there are some topics on the national level that all superintendents will benefit from knowing and understanding, but we also know that Minnesota has its own peculiar ways, like our finance system, for example. And so we wanted to make sure that we trained our individuals well. And we generally see anywhere from 45 to 60 superintendents retiring every year. We have about 330 in the state. And so we needed to make sure we had a bench, so to speak, that was prepared to go in at halftime, to go in at third quarter, to go in when a superintendent retired. And so that was one of the impetuses behind starting the academy.
Okay. Anyone like to add anything?
I will add to what Deb shared, because I think another goal of the Academy is to help our Academy participants not only see themselves in the role of superintendent, but also to start to develop that network, so that they know who to go to, that they have an opportunity to sit down with currently serving superintendents who love their jobs and who can talk about things that go well in their jobs and things that they wish they had done differently, so that there's a lot of vicarious learning.
I'm assuming there was no opposition to the idea. I guess you would have discussed it with the board. Was everyone was on board, so to speak, from the beginning, Deb?
Yes, it's my understanding everyone was on board from the beginning. I wasn't in my position as executive director at the time, but I was a coach in the first cohort. So I didn't hear any opposition, only really excitement and a number of people applying to become aspiring superintendents and many people applying to be a coach for each of the participants.
Great. So who participates in the academy and how are they selected? Who's taking that?
We have people that are in central office positions. We have individuals that are principals that apply. We have individuals who are students and they make application to join the Aspiring Superintendents Academy cohort. I also keep a spreadsheet of individuals that I have been told would be great applicants for the Aspiring Superintendents Academy, and I look for diversity. I have tried very hard to make sure that our applicant pool reflects the individuals that are in our classrooms, our students. And so we have tried to increase the number of people of color in our aspiring superintendents group, the number of women, and so on. So the individuals who participate are those who answer the call when we put out the notice that the aspiring superintendent's application is available. And for those that I reach out directly to, that Lori reaches out directly to, and I'm sure Kate will reach out to in the future, we just compile a list. And again, we send personal emails and I make personal phone calls to individuals to help diversify our group.
Great, thank you. Now, let's
I jump
dig
into
in.
that first one
Sorry.
thing, Doug.
Please.
Just the other piece that we've really tried to do, as Deb was talking, I looked at some of our historical information. And in addition to that gender balance and racial balance that we're trying to establish, we also really try to establish both leaders in our larger metropolitan areas as well as greater Minnesota. The needs are great across the state, and we want to make sure that we have a balanced representation of that leadership to the greatest degree possible.
Doug, I can tell you that as a facilitator, I really appreciate the intentionality with which Lori and Deb have gone about trying to seek additional participants for the Academy. I'm uncertain about what the demographic data is at the national level, but perhaps Minnesota's superintendents reflect data that is also reflective at the national level, in that there are few females in the superintendency and few people of color and indigenous people in the superintendency in the state of Minnesota. And I appreciate that they viewed that as a significant need for the state of Minnesota and stepped up with the Academy design to be really intentional about that.
Good. Now, let's drill down a bit and tell our viewers how often participants meet in the Academy. How are these meetings structured? Presentation, discussion, small group brainstorming, and so on. Just fill us in on the structure of the Academy.
So we have 5 weekends that our participants meet. It's a Friday-Saturday combination. We meet from 9 to 4 on Friday and 9 to 3 on Saturday. And they are staggered over the course of the school year. Previously, we did run them via a calendar year, and I think we're going to find that our school year model saves us a little bit of time trying to track people down over the summer. So we started at the end of September, and we will wrap up in April. Our model initially was to be extremely intentional about developing relationships and connections. Kate really prioritized that, and already having just finished our second weekend, I think we see the fruits of those connections given the amount of talking that our participants are doing both with each other during our sessions, as well as reaching out to some of those folks who have been speakers for us in between sessions. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about how those conversations were structured?
Sure. Another thing that I would add, Lori, to what you said is that Lori and Deb have designed this. So not only are there aspiring superintendent participants, but there are sets of coaches. So Deb mentioned that in her initial comments about the development of the Academy. But so sitting alongside during these 5 weekends, sitting alongside the aspiring superintendents are literally 5 sitting superintendents in the state of Minnesota, both from the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro region and from greater Minnesota. And those superintendents come alongside to build relationships and build network with the aspiring superintendents, to answer questions, help to facilitate table conversations, in some cases give presentations to the aspiring superintendents. So not only do we have the aspiring folks, but we also have sitting superintendents who come alongside of us to help implement the Academy model. One of the things that we're very intentional about in order to build relationships and networks is the idea that adults learn best when they are in conversation, when they are in social conversation with each other. So we've structured intentionally assigned groupings for every single day of the academy, so that by the time people leave at the end of their 5 weekends, they have a brand new network of these 25 or 35 people, and they've literally sat side by side with them at the table over the course of at least 1 or 2 of the days during the academy. In order to really get those adult voices in the room, not only do we assign groups very intentionally for the morning sessions, the afternoon sessions, sometimes the lunch sessions, but also for the coaching sessions that they meet with each of the days of the academy with their assigned coach. We really work to, in those table conversations and large group conversations, we really work to surface prior knowledge that participants are coming with and prior experience that the aspiring superintendents are coming with. We really work to connect their prior experience and their prior knowledge with new learning. And we keep them in conversation, both in small groups and large groups, regularly during presentations and then before and after presentations. And we're always trying to emphasize the connection of new learning to leadership practice. How does your new learning impact your leadership practice? How does your new learning impact your leadership practice? So we always come back to that.
Good. What impact did COVID have on the academy?
Well, the impact it had initially was that the third cohort was delayed. They really worked, I was not the director of professional learning at the time, but they really worked to offer these sessions in person, and it was very difficult to do that. So many of the sessions, the early sessions were virtual, and they were able to come together for the spring session. But I think Kate and I and Deb and I have had a number of conversations about how to offer the content. Many of our professional learning opportunities are done in a hybrid model with people in the room and people virtual. And the more we have these conversations, the more critical we realize it is to have people in the room together for the conversations.
So did you use this hybrid, virtual in-person model in the academy at all?
No,
did you experiment with that?
Not through the academy, although we run a similar program to the Aspiring Superintendents Academy. We offer a Great Start cohort to all of our new superintendents during the year, and that is a hybrid model. And some of the things that Kate addressed with the coaching opportunities and the amount of conversation, I just see as very different between the two programs. People who sit next to each other and have lunch together talk and engage differently than people who need to participate virtually.
Oh, and by the way, I found that hugely important in my own work. It's very difficult to bring off a totally virtual program. And so I try to avoid it when I can, when it's possible. Continuing to get into the detail, tell me about program content. For example, what major topics did you address in the last academy?
Yes, I'm happy to take that. I wrote down my list. So we've typically started the academy with conversation around board superintendent relationships, school finance. We have a lot of general leadership topics, everything from positive psychology and optimism around well-being and resilience. So kind of that, how to be a resilient leader, to communication, to the violence project, emotional intelligence. We talked about managing complex change. So a lot of theory that I think Kate has really helped us do that next piece around, and how does this new learning or refreshed learning impact your current leadership practice? And then we typically end our 5th weekend together with developing entry plans and interviewing conversation, working with search firms. So how do we move from, is this something I can do, to, okay, how do I actually do that?
Including how you apply for superintendent positions, that kind
Correct.
of thing.
Mhm.
Extremely important. Is there anything that looms really, really large among those content areas where you get a sort of whammo effect, like, whoa, this is,
I think so. I think school board superintendent relationships and school finance are the two that are most daunting to people who are considering becoming superintendents. Everything else, people seem to have done in one way or another. They've been school leaders or department leaders or district level leaders in HR or finance. They're familiar often with schools. They know about schools, they know about teachers, they know about kids. It's that different relationship that they have working with the school board, and the awesome responsibility and the deep desire to truly understand school finance. And as Deb indicated at the very beginning, school finance in Minnesota is challenging. So I think if we can get those two big things addressed right away, and our currently serving superintendents talk about maybe missteps that they've made with their school boards and how they would do things differently, and experts coming in to talk about, this is what we know works well for school leaders and their boards. Having those conversations up front, I think, relieves a lot of the stress for our aspiring superintendents, so that they can see themselves in the shoes and then continue the learning.
it's interesting, given the importance of, it is to me anyway, given the importance of the board superintendent partnership to a superintendent's success, that it's not really addressed, that subject, systematically in, say, colleges of education around the country. So it's really an important topic for you to address. And I'm sure you're finding that the great majority of, I assume you're finding that the great majority of superintendent aspirants have not really acquired much knowledge before coming to the program about the board superintendent relationship, the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of observation that they do with the superintendents that they have the opportunity to see and work with, but not a lot directly. And I think some of our presentations between Deb and inviting our school boards association in as well, to show the partnership that we try to support the work that they do and vice versa, also helps build the idea that there's a lot of support for school leaders there when they step into the position.
So if I understand, you've been at this for 4 years, right, Deb?
Our
The
first
academy?
program was in 2016. This is
Pardon?
the 4th academy.
4th academy. So what impact has the academy had, so far as you can tell, over since it was founded, on participants? And you might discuss a bit how you learn about the impact, how you follow up.
It's funny you mentioned that second part of the question about how I might mention how I know about the impact. I will tell you, the first cohort of aspiring superintendents is very proudly announces whenever they have the opportunity that they were in the first cohort. They have remained friends together, and many of them completed the academy and went on to become a superintendent. And they continue to network to this day. They really enjoy each other's presence. They call on each other for assistance, to support each other. And so I hear from them how impactful the academy was. And again, many of them got a superintendency right away. So and now some of those individuals have applied to be superintendent of the year in our state and have had outstanding applications. So we have yet to have a graduate be the superintendent of the year, but I can see it coming. These individuals are really doing well in their positions. And I'm really proud of the fact that they had some of their training anyways through our Aspiring Superintendents Academy. So they're impactful leaders.
Deb,
Great.
I'm going to push your memory a little bit. Wasn't Matt Hillman part of the first round of aspiring superintendents?
You're right, and I apologize. He was our superintendent of the year last year, and he was a superintendent on the national scene as well. He was one of 4 finalists for AASA Superintendent of the Year. So thank you for that reminder. He exemplifies what we would like to see in all of our superintendents and those individuals that have gone through the Aspiring Superintendents Academy. So it didn't take long for one to surface and become Superintendent of the Year. I don't know how I forgot that. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else before we move to our?
I did
Last
pull
question.
some of the information that we had shared. In our first 3 cohorts. We had 85 total participants, 20 of whom have gone on to become superintendents in Minnesota, one director of a statewide education organization, and I would argue they have all become better leaders given the experience of the program.
Good.
And I know of at least one other individual who graduated from the program that's a superintendent in another state.
Well, I know you all have a very busy week ahead. So this is our last question. Looking forward, what new programmatic content are you thinking about adding to respond to emerging needs? Tell us a bit about the future.
I can start with a couple of things that I think we're going to be talking about. One around courageous conversations, when to have them, how to have them. We know that some of our communities and some of our superintendents are just dealing with really challenging communication. So we've talked about communication previously, but maybe talking about it in different ways, how we bring people with really opposing positions together to be able to have those civil conversations. And the second piece that I would add is a lot of conversation around different scenarios. I have tasked some of our superintendent coaches as well as our presenters to bring in a situation, and I've asked them to try to have it not be one that they were super successful in, so that people can learn from that situation and also see that, well, here is Dr. Kate Maguire, a well-respected superintendent who had some mistakes in her early days or things that she might do differently knowing now what she knew then. And it makes Kate seem more human, and it makes me think that, well, maybe I could do that. If Kate is around to help me and guide me, maybe that's something that I could try. So those would be 2 pieces. Kate, I don't know if you have others to add.
I would add a couple of things that Lori and I have talked a little bit about is I see that there is continued need and desire on the part of participants to talk about equity, in particular racial equity transformation. What does this look like in my place, in my town, in my school district? There's desire and need around that. Minnesota has disparate academic outcomes, and everywhere in the state. And we know that that's a critical priority. We've talked, Lori and I recently talked about youth voice. How do we share information and find out and have participants share information about how youth voice is being elevated in the work, and how does that even rise to the superintendent level? I think organizational culture and climate and the superintendent's impact on organizational culture and climate is always important. And then, you know, I always think about how do we encourage aspiring superintendents to continue to be critically reflective practitioners, even as they move into the superintendent position. Those are some of the things I think about.